They say no good deed goes unpunished. But I never thought mine would try to punish me from inside my own home. The first time I caught my niece wearing my heels, I laughed. The second time she was standing in the mirror whispering my name like she was trying it on for size. The third time, she was in my husband's lap. Let me take you back. Before the lies, before the twisted games, before I realized I had opened my door to something far more dangerous than I could have imagined. My name is Camille. I'm 38 years old. I've been married to Thomas for 12 years. No kids. Just the two of us building a quiet life together. A comfortable routine. A safe place in a chaotic world. Then came the phone call that changed everything. My sister died in a car crash. No goodbye. No time to prepare. She left behind her only daughter, Taylor. 17 years old. Alone. Taylor hadn't spoken to me in years. Not since her mother and I had a falling out. But blood is blood. Family is family. And grief makes you forget grudges. So I went to her city, packed her things and brought her home. When I saw her standing on that sidewalk, hair messy, hoodie too thin, mascara smeared from crying, I thought to myself, this girl needs love. This girl needs stability. He's just a kid. And in my mind I was the hero. The good aunt. The woman stepping up when no one else would. Taylor barely spoke the first few days. She stayed curled up in the guest room, lights off, music low, not eating. I sat by her door some nights, just so she wouldn't feel alone. I brought her warm meals, ran her baths, made sure she had everything she needed. Thomas, my husband, was supportive at first. He said we'd make it work together. He gave her rides to school. He talked to her when I couldn't get through. And for a while I believed we were doing something good. But the signs were there. Small ones at first. My clothes started disappearing. A sweater. Then a blouse. Then a pair of heels I hadn't worn in months. One day I found my silk robe hanging in her bathroom. Still smelled like my perfume. I asked her about it gently. She said, I just like feeling close to you. You remind me of Mom. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But things kept shifting. Taylor started dressing differently. Not just more stylish but more grown. Tight tops. Red lipstick. My lipstick. She began wearing my jewelry. Spraying my perfume. Posting selfies online that looked eerily similar to photos I'd taken years ago. One post caught my eye. She was wearing my white blouse. Hair curled just like mine. Captioned, "Stepping into my power." The comments were full of compliments. Guys saying she was glowing. Asking who she was. Calling her wifey material. I started feeling uncomfortable, but I said nothing. Because grief is strange. And I thought maybe she was just trying to find herself again. Rebuild her identity. Until I walked in one night and saw her sitting on the kitchen counter. With Thomas standing in front of her. Too close. Laughing at something she whispered. Her hand brushing his chest as she reached for a glass. My stomach dropped. But again I told myself I was overthinking. That I was tired. That I was being paranoid. Then came the text message. It was accidental. Thomas had left his phone on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to hand it to him and the screen lit up. A message from Taylor. She had sent him a picture. Not inappropriate but suggestive. Her in my robe, biting her lip, posing like a woman, not a child. Beneath it she wrote, "She doesn't deserve you. I can love you better." Everything inside me froze. I stood there staring at that screen, my heart breaking in real time. My niece. The girl I took in. The girl I defended. The girl I fed and clothed and bathed in protection. She was plotting behind my back. And Thomas, he didn't stop her. I scrolled up. More messages. Late night chats. Inside jokes. One even said, "Don't worry. I won't tell if you don't." I felt sick. I put the phone down and walked straight into the bathroom. Locked the door. Collapsed onto the cold tile floor. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And the enemy was inside my home. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, replaying every moment, every hug, every time I let my guard down. Taylor wasn't just trying to be me. He was trying to replace me. But if she thought she could walk into my life, smile in my face and take what I built, she was about to learn something important. I don't play victim. I play smarter. and she forgot I raised her. Which means I know exactly how to take her down. The morning after I found the message, I didn't speak a word. I got up early, made coffee, and watched them both closely. Thomas sat across from me at the table, flipping through his phone like nothing had happened. His shirt wrinkled, hair messy, eyes slightly tired. Taylor strolled in 5 minutes later, still in the robe. My robe. She looked at me, smirked, poured herself juice. Then she kissed Thomas on the cheek and said, "Morning." My stomach flipped. He was testing me. And Thomas? He flinched. He didn't smile back. Just gave a half-hearted nod, then stared at his toast like it might bite him. It was in that moment I knew two things. First, he wasn't innocent. And second, he was scared. Taylor had power over him. She wasn't some foolish girl with a crush. She was manipulative. Calculated. She had studied me. Watched me. Learned what made Thomas tick. But I've learned, silence is sharper. Silence unnerves. Silence makes them question what you know when you knew it and what you're about to do. So I stayed silent. I let Taylor think she was winning. I let her wear my clothes. I let her laugh a little too loudly at Thomas's jokes. I let Thomas avoid eye contact like a child caught cheating on a test. I let it all play out. While I watched, listened, and planned. I started checking the Wi-Fi history. Their messages were deleted, but the timestamps remained. 1 a.m., 3 a.m., midnight. Always while I was asleep. Then I noticed Thomas was showering more than usual. Once in the morning. Then again at night. Even after I'd gone to bed. I started watching the laundry. His shirts had perfume on them. Not mine. Taylor's. She had a distinct scent. I knew it well by now. Something young and sugary. It clung to everything she touched. I began writing it all down. Every moment. Every strange glance. Every lie. Every shift in behavior. I wasn't just documenting. I was building a case. Because if they thought they could gaslight me, they'd need to try a lot harder. But I didn't stop there. I placed a small recording device under the couch cushion. Another in the hallway near Taylor's room. Cheap, discreet, and enough to pick up whispers. I felt sick doing it. But I needed truth. And truth doesn't always walk through the front door politely. Sometimes you have to trap it. By the end of the week, I had hours of audio. One conversation made my blood run cold. "Taylor, you said she doesn't touch you anymore." "Thomas, I didn't mean for this to happen." "Taylor, but it did. And you like it." "Thomas, she's been good to you. You shouldn't be doing this." "Taylor, I'm not a child. Stop pretending like you're innocent." There was. Clear as glass. He didn't stop her. He didn't pull away. He participated. And that changed everything. I wasn't just angry at her. I was done with him. The next step was easy. I contacted a divorce attorney, a woman I trusted. I handed her everything. Texts, recordings, timelines. She listened without blinking. By the end of the meeting, she leaned across the desk and said, "Camille, this isn't just betrayal. This is abuse. You're doing the right thing." And I believed her. Because it was no longer about revenge. It was about removal. Removing the rot before it spread. The final piece came when I decided to test them. One evening, I pretended to leave the house for an overnight spa trip. I even booked the hotel. But I never went. I parked 2 streets down. Watched the house. Waited. 2 hours later, the lights went off in Thomas's bedroom. Taylor's light came on. Then went off. And 15 minutes later, their shadows appeared, together, behind the curtains. I drove back to the hotel and screamed into a pillow. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was angry at myself, for not seeing it sooner. For doubting my instincts. For allowing either of them to breathe my air a second longer. But that night I didn't cry. I planned. The next morning I came home. Acted like nothing had happened. Taylor greeted me in the kitchen, sipping coffee from one of my favorite mugs. She smiled. I smiled back. Because I already knew exactly what I was going to do. In 2 days, Thomas would receive divorce papers at work, delivered directly to him, along with the audio files burned onto a USB. Taylor, I had something different in mind for her. But not yet. Because revenge isn't a sprint. It's a dance. And I was just getting started. I think what shocked me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how calm I felt once I accepted it. That moment after the denial cracks and the truth pours in. When the pain stops flailing and settles into something solid. That's when I knew I wasn't broken. I was focused. 2 days after I pretended to leave for the spa, I stood in my closet, looking at the half-empty shelf where Thomas's colognes used to sit. He had moved them into the guest bathroom. I hadn't even noticed when. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. They weren't. Taylor had grown bolder. She walked through the house in silk nightgowns. She cooked breakfast in the kitchen humming love songs. One morning I found her phone propped on the counter, recording herself in a cropped tee and lip gloss, dancing, flirting with the camera. I watched her from the hallway. Watched her pose in my kitchen like she owned it. He wanted attention. Craved it. He wanted followers, likes, validation. He wanted my life. But she forgot. While she was busy performing, I was documenting. And Thomas? He had no clue what was coming. The morning the divorce papers arrived, I didn't speak a word. I just watched the clock. At exactly 10:42 a.m. my lawyer texted me. He's received them. He signed for the envelope. It's done. I felt it hit, like a wave pulling away from the shore. Gone. Finished. No more pretending. That evening Thomas came home late. He walked in with heavy steps, keys jingling nervously in his pocket. His face pale. His hands twitching. He didn't look at me when he said, "Camille, can we talk?" I stood at the sink washing a wine glass and said, "Sure." He sat down at the kitchen table, head bowed like a child waiting to be punished. He tried to explain. Said it was a mistake. That he'd been confused. Lonely. I asked him why he didn't leave me before sleeping with my niece. He said, "I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed. Laughed so hard I had to put the glass down. "You didn't want to hurt me?" I said. "You invited her into our home, watched me grieve my sister, and then slept with her. That was the hurt." He had no words. Because cheaters rarely do when you strip away the excuses. When he finally stood up to leave, I handed him a small box. Inside it was the USB. He froze. "What's this?" I smiled. "Proof. Of everything." He opened it. Saw the label. Then he looked at me, panicked. "Camille, please." But I was already walking away. "I won't release it. Not unless I have to," I said. "But if you try to fight this, embarrass me, or let her stay here one more day, you'll be dealing with more than just a lawyer." He left that night. Taylor came home an hour later. She noticed his cologne missing from the bathroom. He asked where he was. I told her the truth. "He's gone. And you're next." Her face fell. She tried to laugh it off. "What are you talking about?" "You have 24 hours to get out of my house," I said, calm and sharp. "I've already spoken to a social worker. You're being reassigned." "You can't do that," she snapped. "I'm your niece. You took me in." I stepped closer. "I took you in out of love. But what you brought into this house was poison. You manipulated a grown man, destroyed your aunt's marriage, and smiled while doing it. You're not my niece. Not anymore. You're a stranger." She screamed. Threw a mug at the wall. Slammed her door. But I didn't flinch. Because I had done enough crying. Enough giving. Now it was about taking back what was mine. The next day she was gone. Didn't even say goodbye. Just left behind a trail of perfume and a few stolen necklaces. I changed the locks. Blocked her number. Deleted the pictures. Burned the robe. Thomas tried to call me a few times after that. Left voicemails I didn't listen to. He moved in with his brother. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. People asked questions. Family gossiped. Friends took sides. But I never told them the full truth. Because I didn't need anyone to validate my pain. I knew what happened. And I survived it. But the real revenge. It wasn't the USB. It wasn't the silence. It wasn't even the divorce. It was the fact that I rebuilt everything they tried to ruin. I renovated the house. Started a home design business. Something I'd put off for years while playing perfect wife. I made new friends. Traveled solo. Learned how to cook for one and love it. One day a letter came in the mail. From Taylor. Handwritten. Pages long. He said she was sorry. Said she didn't know why she did it. Said she missed me. I read every word. Then I folded the paper and tossed it in the fireplace. Because some apologies don't deserve responses. They deserve fire. People often assume the hardest part is the betrayal. But for me it was the after. The stillness that comes after the wreckage. The nights when the silence in the house felt louder than any fight could have ever been. You'd think once I kicked them both out I'd feel victorious. But instead it felt like grieving a second death. My sister was gone. My niece was a stranger. My husband never truly was mine. But grief has a way of teaching you things no one else can. Teaches you how to stand alone in a room and not shrink. Teaches you how to cook for one and enjoy it. It teaches you that the silence isn't your enemy. It's proof that the noise is gone. And in that silence I began again. I tore down the curtains Taylor once danced behind. Repainted the kitchen she had once claimed. Bought new sheets, new mugs, new candles. Everything with a fresh scent, untouched by lies. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt mine. I threw myself into my business. Designing interiors for single women who were rebuilding just like me. Women who had been cheated on, lied to, abandoned, manipulated. They'd sit across from me with tear-streaked cheeks and broken voices, telling me they didn't know how to feel at home in a place that held so many bad memories. And I'd smile and tell them, let's start with the curtains. Because sometimes healing starts with something that simple. But just when I thought it was all behind me, karma started to whisper back. One of my former neighbors sent me a screenshot. A viral thread on Twitter. Someone had exposed a scandal. A man in his 40s caught having an affair with his wife's teenage niece. They didn't mention names. But the details? The city. The timing. The pictures attached. It was Thomas. And Taylor. The internet ripped them apart. People called them disgusting. Predators. Manipulators. Abusers. And for the first time since I walked away from it all, I felt something surprising. Nothing. Not pity. Not rage. Just distance. They were no longer my pain. They were each other's burden now. Taylor posted a crying video days later. No makeup. Puffy eyes. Shaky voice. Said she didn't know any better. Said Thomas took advantage of her. Said she was just looking for love and got caught in a web of manipulation. I watched it once. Then turned off my phone. Because I had spent too long being the one who hurt quietly while everyone else got to perform their side of the story. Not anymore. My truth didn't need to go viral. It was enough that I was still standing. It was enough that I didn't have to lie to feel safe. It was enough that my peace was no longer conditional. And as for Thomas? He lost everything. His job fired him for misconduct. His brother, who took him in, kicked him out after the scandal broke. No one wanted to be associated with the man who groomed his teenage niece. Taylor went back to living with a distant cousin. Someone she barely knew. Because even her internet followers stopped feeling sorry for her. You can only weaponize sympathy for so long before people see the pattern. But me. I was finally living. I started hosting small dinner parties. The kind where women laughed loudly, drank wine, and talked about dreams instead of men. I stopped dressing for anyone's approval. Stopped apologizing for taking up space. Stopped pretending I was anything but whole. One night I sat on the back patio watching the candles flicker, wrapped in a blanket I bought for myself on a random Tuesday. And I realized, this isn't just survival. It's reclamation. They tried to destroy me in the house I built. But they didn't understand. The foundation wasn't them. It was me. And I rebuilt from the ashes without blinking. I didn't need to ruin their lives. Life did it for me. Because karma doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes she comes softly years later when no one's looking. But she always comes. And when she does, you don't need revenge. You just need a front row seat. I didn't expect to see Taylor again. I truly believed she'd disappear from my life like a shadow at dawn, something that came close but never touched the light. But pain has a strange way of circling back just to make sure you're really over it. It was a Saturday morning, quiet, warm. I had just returned from the farmer's market with fresh flowers and too many pastries. My favorite kind of day. I kicked off my sandals, turned on music, and opened the curtains to let in the sun. That's when the doorbell rang. I almost ignored it. But something in my chest stirred. I walked to the door, still humming to myself, and opened it. And there she was. Taylor. Thinner. Pale. Her hair pulled into a messy knot like she hadn't brushed it in days. A sweatshirt 3 sizes too big. No makeup. No performance. Just raw. Her eyes welled up the second they met mine. "Hi, Aunt Camille." I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. She swallowed hard. "Can I come in?" I leaned against the doorframe. "No." She blinked as if she hadn't prepared for that answer. "I don't want anything," she said. I needed to see you." "Why?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I guess, to say sorry. For real this time. Not like before." I waited. Let the silence do what it does best, expose the truth. She kept talking. She said she lost her job after the scandal. That no one trusted her. That every room she entered, people whispered. That Thomas stopped speaking to her months ago. "He blamed me," she said. "Said I ruined his life." I said nothing. Because the truth was, he ruined his life the moment he laid eyes on a girl who didn't belong to him. He was shaking now. Tears falling without shame. "I messed up. I know. I was young. I was stupid. I was grieving." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't stand on my porch and make this about pain. We were all grieving. But not all of us turned that into betrayal." She looked down. "I wanted to be you," she whispered. "You were everything I wasn't. Beautiful. Stable. I thought if I took the things that made you powerful, I'd feel powerful too. But I didn't. I felt empty. And now I have nothing." I took a long breath. Because I wanted to yell. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her what kind of person steals love out of the hands that fed them. But I didn't. Because anger is heavy. And I was tired of carrying things that didn't belong to me anymore. So I said the truth. "You don't have nothing, Taylor. You have yourself. And if you can live with her, then that's something." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she said again. "Even if you never forgive me." I stepped back, hands still on the door. "I did forgive you," I said quietly. "Not for you. For me. Because I deserve peace." She opened her mouth to speak again, but I closed the door before she could. And I didn't cry. Not a single tear. Because forgiveness isn't a welcome mat. It's a boundary. And mine was solid. Later that evening, I lit a candle, poured a glass of wine, and sat on the patio where I'd built my new life. I looked around at everything I had created. A home full of light. A business full of purpose. A life no one could steal again. And in that moment I realized, my revenge wasn't fire. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even justice. It was this. The quiet. The calm. The unbothered freedom of a woman who no longer needed to win. Because she already had. 6 months passed. Not a text. Not a letter. Not a whisper of drama from Taylor or Thomas. It was like the universe had finally granted me silence, and I cherished it the way most people cherish sleep after a long nightmare. I was no longer looking over my shoulder. I didn't flinch when the doorbell rang. I didn't second-guess my instincts or replay old conversations in my head. I just lived. One morning, while scrolling through emails for my interior design business, I came across a client request from a familiar last name. Harrington. It didn't click at first. But as I read through the request, I saw the full name. Thomas Harrington. A woman named Emily had filled out the form on his behalf. I laughed. Out loud. Alone in my kitchen. He was remarrying. Already. I clicked off the form and deleted it. Because I wasn't interested in ghosts trying to rent space in my new life. That same week, I was asked to speak at a women's empowerment event. The theme was reclaiming your space. They wanted me to tell my story. Not for pity but for power. So I did. I stood on that stage, lights hot on my face, a microphone in one hand, truth in the other. And I told it all. I told them about my sister's death. About the niece I welcomed in with open arms. About the husband I thought was loyal. About the betrayal that tried to devour me. And about the woman who walked out of the fire not burned, but reborn. They cried with me, laughed with me, stood on their feet when I said the one thing I needed the world to hear. You do not have to stay small for anyone to love you. And if someone demands your silence in exchange for peace, they were never your peace to begin with. Afterward, women lined up to hug me. Some were older. Some were barely out of college. But they all had the same look in their eyes, the look of someone who had been through something and needed permission to let it go. And I gave them that permission. Because no one gave it to me. I drove home that night with music playing, windows down, heart full. And for the first time in a long time I felt it. Closure. Not the kind you beg for. Not the kind you hope someone else gives you. But the kind you create when you realize you survived. The kind you taste when you've rebuilt the house they tried to burn down. With better walls, brighter windows, and no secret doors. Taylor never reached out again. Last I heard, she moved out of state. Working retail. Still trying to figure herself out. And Thomas? I don't know. I don't care. As I stopped checking. Stopped watching. Stopped wondering. That part of my story ended. And I didn't just walk away, I closed the chapter and locked the book. Now when I look in the mirror, I don't see the woman who got betrayed. I see the woman who left anyway. The woman who protected her peace. The woman who stood up from the ruins and said, "Not today." I tell you this not because I want you to feel sorry for me. I tell you because I want you to know. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, whether it's family, a partner, or anyone close, you are allowed to walk away without guilt. You are allowed to choose yourself and never look back. You are allowed to grow so wildly they wouldn't recognize you even if they tried. That is your revenge. Not their pain. Not their karma. But your joy. Because the loudest revenge is peace. And I have never been quieter. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of your own betrayal or gave you the strength to finally choose yourself, then let it be the beginning of your next chapter. Don't forget to like this video to support the channel. Comment below and tell me, what does healing look like for you? Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that betrayal doesn't end you. It introduces you to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. And subscribe for more stories like this, raw, real, and fiercely healing. New episodes every week because your strength deserves to be seen and your story deserves to be heard. I'll see you in the next one.